This episode of Monty's Minute is sponsored by Shutterstock.com. With over 20 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. For 30% off on your new account, just go over to Shutterstock.com and use offer code GAMEBREAKER5. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Monty's Minute, episode number 29 for May 6th, 2013. I'm Gary again, and you're watching Gamebreaker TV. And joining me, as always, the one, the only Mr. Monty Sharma. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Gary. How you doing?
Doing awesome. Ready for some Monty's Minute. Got to learn how to break into the industry. You know how it is.
So first up, questions.
This week we got some video to roll at the top of the show this week. So Linda Carlson from Sony Online Entertainment. Where did you run into her?
Ran into Linda at PAX and actually at JDC as well. So Linda's the head of community for Sony Online Global. So she handles EverQuest, EverQuest 2, PlanetSide 2, a whole bunch of other things. So all of the GMs and community people work for Linda. And
she's a dwarf by trade.
She's a tremendous costumer.
She's amazing.
She always freaks me out in the dwarf costume because really my brain doesn't think it's her.
I know. Well, here's Linda. Let's check it out.
How I got into, you mean how I got into the gaming industry? It's a really weird story. I got in basically because I'm a gamer. I started playing online games with EverQuest in 1999 and never looked back. Now, at that time, I never for a minute thought that I would ever work for Sony Online Entertainment. I was just the biggest fanboy. But because I had a past history in management journalism, working for nonprofit organizations, I guess I had the skill set that we're looking for. Love dealing with people, love my fellow fans. I'd been going to fanfare for years, and so eventually I was hired on into the community department. It is the most stressful job I've ever had in my life, and it is the best job I've ever had in my life. There is not one boring day when you're dealing with communications between the players and the company, collecting feedback to bring to developers, helping to forge messaging to let players know what we're doing, and engaging with players, talking with them directly, exchanging ideas, whether it's on forums, Facebook, Twitter, with our various webcasts and Twitch TV streams, chatting with them on Reddit, going to fan sites and talking to them where they never expect us to show up. It's like no one expects the Spanish Inquisition. And of course going to events like SOE Live, which by the way is August 1st through 3rd this year in Las Vegas. You really got to go there. But my path was sort of convoluted. What I will tell you that as director of community, when I'm hiring people for community, I'm looking for outgoing, well-spoken individuals who have an excellent command of the English language. In fact, if you can't write better than I do, you better not even apply. So yes, we love people with journalism background, with video casting background, writers of any stripe, and of course English majors are terrific. And the best thing about it is there's no previous career path which will rule you out from joining a community team. It's more about personality, perspective, attitude, your approach to gaming and gamers, the passion that you have for that, but it does have to be supported by a really good communication skill set.
So, those are words I think a lot of people actually would really love to hear. There is no predefined path. There's no actual road you can actually take to getting your foot in the door here. And she kind of lays it right in the line and just says, you know what? Here's what it is. You got to be outgoing. You got to be smart. You got to be able to write. But there's not one specific thing they're looking for on your resume as far as you took this course. Nope.
Now, how many times do you hear we love English majors?
Mm-hmm.
It's not something employers say a lot. No, it's so. I mean, when Linda says her job is stressful, she's talking about any time there's a disaster in any one of the games, everyone's pounding on her. So the executive team's going to be calling her. All the communication's going to roll up. It becomes a real issue. I remember they were working on something. I forget exactly what it was. It was something to do with how they were accepting money in Europe, and they were changing it, and everything looked fine. Everybody was going through, and somebody had missed one of the aspects of it, and everything blew up. And it's something that, in really short order, the communications team has to figure out, okay, look, what's going on? What can be done about it? So is this something we're going to roll back? Is it something we can technically fix? And then, when she talks about communicating better than her, and she was a journalist before she came to SOE, it really is you then have to tell the fan base and the media that, hey, look, we know that such and such happened. We are doing this about it, or we're doing nothing about it. And yes, it's unpleasant, but we're going to have to live through it. And that's really the essence of it. But community is one of those jobs you can get into when you're in your 40s and you've worked in customer service, you've worked in marketing, you've been a journalist, and you want to work in games. Community is one of those places.
Yeah, and we just, one of our hosts on Legendary, Josh Allen, a.k.a. Lore, has been doing World of Warcraft content on the internet for years now, including hosting, and Blizzard just hired him on, and he is now part of the community team and moving out to Irvine, California. So again, they're looking for these people, right? And he fits a lot of the bill, right? He's a very good command of the English language. He's making video content. He's very smart about what he's talking about. He's a super fanboy. So it's like you can check off how many boxes did she just run through that he sort of fit into, and he's got the job. There you go. Now next up here, you got a question. Set this up for me. This was also at PAX, correct?
Yeah, so at PAX we did a minis Monty's Minute where we had some folks who showed up to our booth, asked questions. I answered them there, but the sound quality, my apologies, I'm not Gary, not great. But we'll get the question and then I'll answer it again live.
All right, let's roll it.
I did actually have one question. What's the kind of thing that smaller developers look for in a resume in terms of experience in previous work?
It's a little tough to hear. What he says, what is it? What are developers looking for in a resume?
Hey, well, he said, what do small developers look for?
Small developers, okay.
Yeah, so that indie community, which is really cool. I mean, we talked about it when we showed that interview with Wargaming, that indies are on a bit of a rise right now, partially because mobile is so big and that's exploding, and you can do things with a 3-person team, a 2-person team that you never could before, and so they're generating really quality content. So if you're young, or and by young I mean below 40, and you want to work for an indie, there's a lot of benefits. You are your own boss. You're a small company. It's there's not a lot of people diluting the creativity. You're very focused on exactly what you want to make. But there's also the thing of you have to be a jack of all trades then. So, the big thing that indies are looking for is, yes, you have some core technical skill set that you're good at, but you can do a lot more things. So I run into people who are, I'm a graphics programmer, but as an indie, I've had to do the story, I've had to do the art, I've had to do the game mechanics, I've had to do the balance. All of these things start to show up. So if you really want to work for an indie, it really comes down to, here's all the diverse things I've done on my resume, and here's why I can actually be a good partner to you in a very small group. And then the last thing really is personality. Because you're going to work in such a tight-knit, organization, if you don't get along really well with those people, it's going to be unpleasant. So, that's really what they're looking for.
All right, let's get some questions. First up this week from Andrew. Andrew says, hello, Gary and Monty. Love the show. Keep doing what you're doing. And then he puts this in quotes. He says, just get your foot in the door and doing anything and work your way to what you actually want to do. Close quote. He says, is what I would read in here. He says, I really like the idea of possibly programming on one project, then moving to production with another project, then designing the next. With the explosion of people who are interested in working in the game industry, is moving around still easy? I would figure that the larger population of developers would reward specialization, but I've been a jack of all trades all my life. Thanks again, Andrew. So you just that kind of dovetails quite nicely with what you just followed up on that last question.
Yeah. So, Andrew, if you go to an indie developer, you can be that jack of all trades. They'll love you. If you're going to work for a larger developer, and let's say somebody who's got a team size of 7 or above, then there is a certain amount of roles you have to play. Now, being a jack of all trades, if you're a good programmer, but you understand the art, you can work really tightly with the artists, or you've got some of the production planning, detail skills there, and you can help organize some of that programming stuff, that's going to win you a lot of friends. Everybody likes that person who can extend past their little, 4-foot by 4-foot cubicle. And so when you do that, the way your career goes is it's not so much, hey, I coded on this one, now I want to be a producer. It's, hey, look, you were a great coder here, but you've got all these production skills that we really want. And, we'd rather a specialist coder in there. Let's drop somebody in and let's move you out. If you're in production and you're making real impacts on the design, again, that's something like, hey, look, we're going to up the load of design and what you're doing. But these things tend to happen organically. It's fine to talk to people, say, hey, I'm really interested in this, but you make sure you're focused on and delivering on your core job.
Next up, this one from Ade S. Ade says, Dear Gary and Monty, I am a computer science and psychology major, and as you guess, a gamer. I have already decided that one of my goals in life is to create experiences for users. Focusing on psychology, is there any place for me in the gaming industry? I have been considering working with user interfaces, but I know there has to be more options available. Maybe something that manipulates cognitive processes or doing research, something that's similar to what Peter Molyneux seems to be attempting. He says, I also have a year left till I get my degrees, and I'm considering going to graduate school. So thanks in advance, Ade. So psychology in gaming. I would almost think that there'd probably be a decent opening for somebody like this.
There is. There's a huge role there. You remember we had Eric Asmundson on from 82 Apps. He did Pwned.
Mm-hmm.
He was a psychology major, right? Graduated with that, knew enough coding, and so psychology plays a large part of what happens in games. And this is everything from the compulsion loops that are built. So this is the cycle of things to drive play. Here's what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes. Here's what's going to happen next hour. Here's what's going to happen in the next week. You've got to hook people. You've got to carry them through. A lot of what we're doing is exploring consciousness in games. I mean, that's really what it is how do you see these things, especially when you get mood games, like Myst or, things like that, going way back now. But
how do we trigger that dopamine?
Yeah, how do you get somebody thinking a different way, seeing things in a different way? So there's a huge role there, and that's where you can have lots of impact on the design side as well. Of hey, look, if we do it this way, this is what's going to drive behavior, and that's what you're looking at. So some of it is things like sales behavior, how you price things, and how people respond to certain pricing models. That's all psychology. What kinds of offers you make them and how you kind of reward them for what they do. Those are all things that, you've got a good grounding in. And, Peter Molyneux, he's trying to do that with the cube thing.
Mm-hmm.
Eric did that with his first game where he said, I just wanted to use every mechanism that didn't really make a game go, but it seemed to hook people in. And he put out a game that people would bang on for a while. And, those sorts of things, that exploration is awesome.
All right, last up this week from Neo. Neo says, I have a great idea for an MMO, but I'm getting caught up in the size of the project. Should I go to Kickstarter? Should I license IP? Is there room in the market for an adult heavy metal style MMO? By heavy metal, he's referring to the IP heavy metal.
Yeah, the comic book and the original movie. I don't even know if or comic book magazine. I don't even know if it's still published these days. I have grown out of my heavy metal phase. So depending on, I'm going to go backwards here in terms of, a heavy metal MMO. Interesting, that several people have gone down the path. I mean, Conan, one of their big things was we're aiming for an M rating. We're going to go at this and we're going to have this sort of an attitude towards it. So, yep, you can do that and it's there. The question is how you're going to finance it. So things like advertising sort of disappear when you're into that kind of a mode. Investors probably a little more leery because when you look at the numbers, games that are rated M tend to sell. They're a little harder to sell because occasionally, like maybe 1 in every 10 GameStops, they check your ID when you go to buy an M game, and they won't let kids buy them. So things like that, you really need to have it nailed down and established. In terms of licensing IP versus your own, look, there's a clear advantage to licensing IP. Everybody understands it. They know what they're looking at. They know what to expect. A lot of the sort of the memes and the core of this already exists, and everybody sees it and enjoys it. As long as you stay true to that IP. The problem is it's going to cost you. Now, I've seen a few deals where they've managed to talk the IP holder into a rev share, so they did not pay up front for the IP. Depending on the IP, you might be able to get that sort of a deal, or the deal you get is you're paying something to a lot up front. And at the higher end IP deals, they'll actually make you do things like commit to certain revenue levels. So, hey, if you want to, grab this tier 1 IP, let's say Harry Potter, not only do you have to deliver it, and we're expecting this much money, we want to see a guaranteed minimum of this much. So we get all that before you get what you're doing. Now, when it comes to scale, this is something we talk about often, and it's sort of the biggest mistake of a new developer is they've got the dreams of the ideas, but they have to edit it. They have to cut it down and make it smaller. I'm sure you've seen the same thing in film is, the first-time directors and things like that is, look, you've got about 2 minutes of a good short in that 2-hour movie you just shot. And this is learning. This is a good thing. This isn't anything anybody should be upset about. Is take these big ideas you have and then go at them with a broadsword and say, okay, if there's just one thing I can do in this game, what is that one thing? And is that one thing going to be fun? And get it prototype, get something together, and get people to try it. And if that thing has some fun to it, then you can say, okay, I'm going to add parts 2 through 5, but I'm going to stop there and get to something that's releasable, or if I'm going the Kickstarter way, these days you almost have to have a playable by the time you're bringing in money from Kickstarter. So, at that point, you really want to target having something there and stepping forward in that way. But, as a new developer, you're going to have to get yourself to a prototype stage. And, Neo sent me a bunch of other stuff. Seems like a very talented guy with a wide range of skills. So, Neo, just bite off as much as you can chew and force yourself to stick to a schedule, stop at a certain point with certain things done.
Mr. Monty Sharma, you can follow him on the Twitter at Monster, MONTSTER27. And if you guys have questions for Monty, you can send them to monty@gamebreaker.tv. That's monty@gamebreaker.tv. You can follow me on Twitter at Gary Gannon and follow Gamebreaker TV at Gamebreaker TV. And make sure to like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Gamebreaker TV as well. And we will see you next week for more Monty's Minute. Always a pleasure, Monty. Have a good week.
We'll see you, Gary.